With this movie, we begin drawing more complex shapes with the drawing tool, so you can see the different tools in action, how they relate to fills and color selection and layers, so that we can begin building up to more complex creation to the point where we would want to make something that we could use in an animation. In this movie, we'll create another organic shape, and it will be something relatively simple, a tree stump like a lumberjack would have cut and left in the forest. I'll bring your attention first over here to the lower right, which is the Layers palette. I've created a layer. I double-clicked on it to rename it to Tree Stump. And you can also click the little ellipsis here, which gives you your various layer options, and we'll look at all these in more detail later on. I'll simply choose OK. But we can create really complex layers, which is nice, except for a tree stump. We don't need that. What I want to do is do all my drawing on a single layer so that when it comes time to move this in my scene, I don't have to grab all these parts or create folders. I bring this up because even on a single layer, there's a stacking order. And by that I mean that there is something on the top and something on the bottom. The first object that we would draw will be on the bottom. Every object we draw after that and subsequently will be on top of the last one, hiding what it overlaps. So with that said, let's get going. I want my tree stump to be brown. Right now, the style palette shows a default of white and black. I'll change the fill color to a brown. And when you click on the swatches down here, the program is automatically assuming that you want to change the fill color. If you want to change the stroke color, you actually have to click on the stroke. You'll get a modal color picker that pops up, and then you can kind of push things around and say, well, that's a little too red. Maybe I want it a little more brown. I'll change this to an orange instead of a red. That's a darker brown. I can live with that and choose OK. The next thing I want to take a look at is the freehand tool. We will use that this time so we can get real thick and thin details. In theory, we could probably do it with a blob brush too, but hey, we're trying to learn all the tools. So with the freehand tool selected, there's some options up here to consider. Auto weld, which I'll normally leave on because it completes a shape where as you get near a point, will automatically join the line. That's good. Auto fill, so the tree trunk fills with brown. That's okay. Auto stroke, I want that dark brown on the outside. What I'm going to leave disabled is auto close. I'll tell you when that would be engaged on the drawing as we work with it so you can see what it might do and decide if you want to use it. Finally, under freehand options, we've got some options right here. I'm going to be using a mouse instead of the pressure-sensitive tablet controlling thick and thin. I won't worry about the width variation because that's related to the pen pressure. You can make it random if you want for an irregular kind of natural line. I want it consistent right now. What I don't want is this thick and thin taper that is on by default. So when you start drawing, it starts out very skinny. As you continue drawing, it goes up to the thickest line width you have set over here in the style palette. And then it tapers off again. To disable that, I'm simply going to deselect those checkboxes, and we're ready to draw now. So let's go ahead and draw the first stroke down. And I'll get a root that would go into the ground here, maybe another little one that pops out. And we get one there, and then our tree trunk comes up. At this point, if I released the mouse and that feature up above, auto close, was enabled, it would automatically draw a straight line across to the beginning point and close the shape up. Normally, I want to control that, which is why I left it off. But as I get close to this point here, we'll see that I get a red circle, which lets me know that we're ready to auto weld. I release the mouse. Now we've got a shape that is, well, sort of like a tree trunk. What we need to do now is pretend like there's some light coming from this side, maybe, and draw another shape that's a different color, a lighter wood color. So I'm going to come over here and click this lighter color. It changes the fill. And I'll zoom in just a little bit. And what I want to do really is control this even more. I could freehand it. Let me see if that will work out. I'll click and drag. And I can see I'm getting a stroke that I may not want, but that's okay. I'll bring this back up, and it auto welds together, and there's our shape. If I don't want a stroke, now that this shape is active, all I have to do is come over here to stroke and turn it off. If I choose one of the point selection tools right now and click off the shape, if I want to reactivate this shape to change the color, I simply come down to the Shape Select tool, click on that. I can, with that highlighted now, click and grab individual points if I want. I could change the color. Maybe I don't want it quite so highlighted. Let me come back to the Shape Select. get that checkerboard and say, maybe that's the color I want. Okay, we'll leave it like that. I want to draw this top shape, which would be the tree cut mark, that flat surface on the top. I'm going to make this easy on myself and come to the Shape tool, check the oval option, simply click and drag. Release, I want this to be more or brighter than this one right here, so I'm going to come back and select the shape. Now change this to that lighter brown. I'll choose the tool that allows me to click off the object and make it hide, and now we can see that this is sitting on top of the tree trunk. It's that kind of layer order I was talking about. And we could detail this up with a few tree rings if we wanted. But now we're starting to get into working with the shapes, drawing the first one, knowing that it's going to be on the bottom, and every shape that we draw after that is sitting on top of it. We can go ahead and change the fill colors by selecting the shape with the Shape tool, coming over to the Style palette and working with that, and changing line weight. So there's an introduction, and to start creating some more complex shapes and organic shapes as we work with the drawing tools in Anime Studio Pro.